Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to one of the final sessions. It's mobile apps. Will they start controlling our lives sooner rather than later? That's going to be really interesting. We've got a wonderful panel. Our session moderator, Mr. Abhijit Saxena, founder and CEO, Mobilox. May I request him to come on the stage, please? Abhijit's current vision is to set up industry standard metrics for measuring mobile campaigns and creating vertical-specific best practices for mobile marketing, ensuring mobile as a media get its due recognition and also work hand in glove with other forms of traditional media. Our speakers, Ramesh Raman, Senior Manager, Marketing, IMImobile. He plans and implements a GTM for a SaaS platform, building collateral, writing industry reports, making pitches to telcos. Rahul Razdan, Director, Tensi India, WeChat. Rahul has helmed the India launch of two powerful mobile products from Tencent, WeChat and One Browser. Rahul has been a part of the founding team at Vivo Group and its strategic evolution through the Indian internet and mobile space. And Prithvi Raj, Senior Manager, Mobile Insights, Nielsen. Experienced in developing business strategy, benchmarking disruptive technology, authoring technical white papers, syndicated as well as custom research projects. Our session moderator, Abhijit Saxena.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good that we left the best for the last. So it's a very, very interesting topic. We all know that how engulfed that we are now with apps. I know that the topic is actually fairly. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, Ramesh. Yeah, all yours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to steal the quote that Mr. Mojo made earlier this afternoon. He said the most dangerous thing, according to his MBA teacher, was standing between a man and his lunch. I think the second most dangerous is standing between a man and his going home. I think we've talked about the consumer internet largely through the day. How to monetize consumer internet, mobile applications. So I thought I'll touch upon something that Abhijit was talking in his presentation about mobile internet apps and the enterprise. What opportunity exists for businesses to cater to enterprises, and what opportunities exist for enterprises to leverage this whole app economy that's coming out. So to start off with, which one? So to start off with, about 6 to 8 months ago, there was actually Samsung won a large deal with American Airlines. That was about starting late last year and ending early this year. So that was for about 33,000 Android devices, right? So that was for about 33,000 Android devices, out of which 23,000 of them were from Samsung and not from Apple. This was to be given to all the flight staff, the pilots. One of the things that they really wanted to do was that pilots used to carry a huge flight manual with them. It was mandated that they would have to carry all those books with them, and apparently just converting them into digital on a tablet saved millions of dollars in just fuel costs. Now the point to be noted here is they went with Samsung. Earlier a month ago, a similar thing happened at Delta Airlines, and they actually went with Microsoft Surface 2. And then Delta's pilots were all up in arms. They said, no, we don't want, we don't want a Microsoft device. We want iPhones. One of the reasons, later on a lot of articles came on this, and one of the reasons that they said was that they were all so comfortable with using Android and iPhones, and they hadn't really had the experience on a Windows phone. In other words, what you see here is that people's preferences or people's comfort zone that's established in their personal lives, accessing their personalized content through apps on their devices, has gradually got into how they want to access their device in their professional lives, how they want to go about their business, how they want to go about their official work using applications. So I thought I'll just classify them into 3 trends. The first of them being that there are more number of smartphones than ever before. I think in India, somebody said 67 million smartphones. The more number of apps being downloaded every month. I think last count was 30 million apps on just Android alone. And more number of internet connections, depending on which source you have. The mobile internet connections was about 100 million, as we heard earlier today. So in other words, people are all accessing their personal content. They are communicating over Facebook. They're using WeChat. So all of that in their personal life, and they want to actually transition when they enter their offices. They want to transition that entire environment into their office space. So that's one trend we see as a reason for mobile enabling business processes. The second trend is that a lot of businesses are incorporating cloud into their existing workflows. Now, for non-critical, non-sensitive business data, gradually people are moving it into the cloud. They're going for a lot of Salesforce automation, as Abhijit was saying, Salesforce automation, marketing automation, purchase flows. All of them are moving into applications that are SaaS, that are hosted in the cloud. And a perfect accompaniment to any such SaaS applications is not only the web app through which you can access it, but also mobile applications, because there are APIs that actually seamlessly lend itself to a mobile application. The third one is the increased desire for consumers to engage over mobile. This has been well discussed today all through the day, that more and more people want to engage over mobile. They want to access content over mobile. Whatever they would do over a desktop, they're going one level more. They're watching more videos over mobile than on the desktop. So considering all these 3 trends, what does this mean for us? It means there is an enterprise opportunity. I divide it into 2 parts. Just primarily, one is business to employees and business to consumers. In terms of business to employees, there was a survey by Vansenborn recently in the CIO magazine, which said that on an average, large Fortune 1000 enterprises actually have 400 applications. And these, out of which about 22% are mobile accessible. Just 22% are actually accessible over the mobile. And this also only through a web app. So in other words, there is a huge opportunity for businesses to go help these enterprises have mobile applications, enable their business processes via mobile. So these are some of the things that Abhijit had also touched upon: travel expenses, payment approvals, field data management, which I'll touch upon a little more, some of our experiences in that. And the second part is on the business to consumer. The first was business to their own employees, and the second part is the business to consumers. Now, I think most of you would have an app for booking Meru, the cab service, on your phone, which makes it tremendously easy. It's very easy. One doesn't have to call the call center anymore. It takes the GPS coordinates. So it essentially brings a lot of features that a smartphone gives. It leverages all that into an application. And thereby, businesses through these applications set a competitive advantage. Now, it so becomes that anyone who doesn't have such an app eventually will get wiped out, wouldn't actually be able to capture the audience. He would probably lose that audience away. So this rosy picture is only half of the story. There are a lot of challenges, starting from whether you go HTML or you go apps, how do you handle security, how do you integrate it with your enterprise. A lot of those challenges exist. One of them I thought was particularly relevant in the context of mobile internet that we're talking about today. In the past, we've worked with, I just took 3 case studies, very, very brief. I want to discuss with you, I want to showcase what kind of problems come up when you're out for mobile enabling data, your business workflows. So this was a rural pharma company that was selling contraceptives in rural India. The problem they had was that they would have kirana stores in rural areas, and there is no address for this. It's just Ramu ki dukaan ya Shamu ki dukaan. And the field force guys would go there. They used to have a churn of 60%, which means every 3 months a new guy goes to that village, the same village, which means it's very difficult to find who is there. Now the problem comes that, hey, so okay, let's get the GPS coordinates. Let's have an application that actually captures, one time you capture the coordinates, one time you capture all the picture of the guy, so you can show the picture and say, where does this guy live? So all that was there, but then the problem that we saw was, hey, in a lot of places, there is no internet. You do not have 2G data coverage in a lot of places where the signal is too weak to actually carry data. So the challenge that came up was we had to come up with things like store and forward. You cannot instantly transmit what you have. While we talk about all the mobile internet picture, everything is good. In urban areas, you have 2G, you have like 1/10 of the entire coverage is over 3G in the country now. So, but when it actually comes to real-time business data, we see that, hey, the channel doesn't exist where it is most needed. So we had to come up with a lot of workarounds like store and forward, keep all non-critical data, keep it, send it later. What is very critical, try using other channels like SMS and USSD right away, send it out. Security, for example, you're logging into the application. It needs to be done real time. You can't like have it stored on your device or something. So such things. So the thing is, the point I'm trying to make is, hey, mobile internet is there. Yes, the app story is great, going strong. But then there are still challenges. The Indian context actually sets challenges which are not seen elsewhere. The second example I had was, this is while working with a state government revenue department. The department issues a lot of certificates. So people apply for a caste certificate, an income certificate, and actually one of the person from the department goes to the village, a village accountant goes to the village, goes on location, talks to a couple of people, verifies actually on a piece of paper all this, and then says, okay, this person can be given a certificate, sends it over in a file back to his office, which takes a month, and then from there it gets approved, it takes another month. So typically there's a huge time lag in this whole process. So one of the things we were helping them do was mobile enable this whole process. So the village guy, accountant guy goes to the village, records and says he takes, the location is tracked, so it's geo-fenced. You know exactly whether he went or not. He cannot say that, hey, I went, but he wasn't there. So such things are avoided. And once he's gone there, he actually collects all the data. The data is entered instantaneously. So all this was great. The design was fantastic. Everything is good. But then they gave us, the final bummer was, they said, hey, there will be no data. Smartphone, theek hai. We will build the app, we'll pay for it, theek hai. But there will be no data connectivity at all. I'm not paying 100 rupees for every single phone, and there are apparently about 3,000 such accountants, and they didn't want to pay 100 rupees a month for that. Now this pulls up a question, so what do? You have a smartphone, you have everything cool that you can do with it, you can get real-time data, you can do all of it, but you actually don't have data connectivity itself. So in this case, what they wanted actually was, from the panchayat office he goes, so in the morning he would come to the panchayat office, connect it via USB, use the desktop as an internet channel. You can configure Android to actually use the desktop as an internet, take the data, sync on the app, get the data, then go back into the field, collect all the data, come back in the evening, connect it via USB, and then get up it all, send it up again all over to our servers. So that's the challenge. All the mobile internet story is good, but then there is a price point. Now I'm not arguing that, hey, go below 100. But the point is there is a price point. At some point, the value in it, people would realize it and say, okay, 100 is affordable. 100 is a good good price point. Yes, it's fine. But till that point, the challenge exists. So as people as I'm sure a lot of business here are application developers, that's something that you have to keep cognizance of. The third one, very interesting one we saw again, was about restricted mobile internet, one of India's largest FMCG companies. They wanted to do a lot of rural brand activation. As a part of that, they had a lot of leakage in the system when they would take samples for activation. And they wanted to plug that leakage, and they wanted field force enablement for that. They wanted to actually geotag their person who was activating in the field. And what happened was, they said that, hey, all this is fine, everything is brilliant, but we don't want this person. We know that the people who take it to the field, they might start watching songs on YouTube. And we don't want them to do that, because if they did that, in the first 10 days, the data connectivity would, all the limit that you have would be exceeded, and they wouldn't have data anymore, which would cause business data, the criticality of business data that needs to be captured wouldn't be captured anymore. So that led to this challenge wherein we have to do something like what Amazon does, wherein they hijack the OS, they don't let you go to Google Play Store, they don't let you go to the screen itself. So such things, a lot of such things we had to handle, particularly where, despite the fact that, hey, the internet story is great, the smartphone story is there, apps are brilliant, they will help mobile enable our business processes. All of that is true in all of them, but then the fundamental thing that we take for granted, that mobile internet exists, itself was challenged. So the conclusion was, hey, consumer story is here. There is also the enterprise story. But to say that the smartphone apps control us is sort of matrix-like, and I don't think we are there yet. But what I do believe is that they are very influential. They influence our lives. I think Microsoft, one of the things they're doing is they're bringing Lync and Skype together, which means during core office hours, you will automatically reach out to anybody else on Lync. while during non-core hours, automatically Skype would be used. So depending on that, your entire calendars, your profile pictures, everything will appropriately change. In other words, the thing is, the same consumer experience which is brilliant right now, they want that uninterrupted in their professional lives. They want the same kind of ease of access to data, personalized content, and that's where the enterprise mobile story is. There are challenges to it. Perhaps they will go away, perhaps they won't. But I think we are the cusp of that revolution. I'm quite sure a lot of people here already work with enterprises on mobile apps. But these are some things that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ramesh. Okay, so I'll take this opportunity to actually ask the panelists a few questions. Then, of course, I'll give you the opportunity to ask these questions from the panelists. And so the first question really to all the panelists is, see, we are actually talking to an audience. Except for one, everyone is an owner of smartphone. Everyone uses apps. Is already sold, right? We were really preaching to the converted, right? We were trying to tell them that, oh, apps are very important in our life, when they actually already know that, right? So let's possibly look at a few other questions, and which I would actually even throw open to the audience as well. First question is, what makes these apps so killer? What has been that primary, maybe one reason or two reasons that each one of you could actually tell us, that what is the reason why these apps have grown the way that they have grown?
So there's a ready answer, that's why I just lunged for the mic. So what I've now started calling the 3 Ps of mobile internet, and the first of them is the phone book, the usage of phone book. Phone book was, I remember when the social networking era was kind of building up, I used to have friends in telcos to tell us, no, the real phone book is on the SIM card. The real social graph is on the SIM card. It's just that telcos never knew how to exploit that, and then came about apps which at a phenomenal, in a phenomenally simple manner brought out that entire phone book into an app where you are able to interact with people, and that interaction in that sense has grown since then. So first is phone book integration. That's been the biggest thing which has given a huge fillip to at least one category of apps. The second is the usage of photos and camera. Now suddenly, I know these were also, and for people in, people like Nielsen, these would have been momentous occasions where Nokia became the biggest camera seller in the world, bypassing conventional camera makers. So this phone book would be the next one. The third one, which I believe is third P, is push notifications. So that is what gets people back into active. That's where the OSs, the new smartphone OSs are playing a very good role. Every time, each of this behavior is, if it's news, there's a push notification and I get back to reading that news. There is some social interaction, I get a push notification that gets me back into the app. So the overall environment of the OS and the app with push notifications sees to it that I keep coming back. I may have forgotten, but then the notification brings me back. So these are 3 Ps, what we are calling, which have led to the growth of apps.
Thanks. Prithvi?
Actually, very well said. I'm just going to add a little bit to that. So why are apps more popular than the web equivalent, right? So essentially, apps are more powerful. Now, I'm going to get slightly techie on this, but essentially, apps access is various programming code and sensors that are available on the device. So if I open a Zomato app, it'll automatically tell me that I'm in this particular location, and therefore these are the restaurants open available to me. So it's that extra functionality that just now came about with HTML5, but when apps first emerged or exploded onto the market, in terms of content consumption, they could do a lot more than a regular dumb website could. Secondly, and this is not in any specific order, when I want to go to a site, I have to punch in the URL, or bookmark it, open bookmarks, etc. App, it's a single click. And third is a well-designed app actually has a fantastic user experience, where browsers necessarily can't really replicate that. But then again, the important point is a well-designed app. A lot of companies haven't gone that extra mile to design and optimize the app for specific screen sizes, resolutions, etc. And there you have a subpar experience. But I think it's essentially a couple of these factors. One is HTML5 wasn't available then when apps came about, and the user interface and the ease of use kind of added and made apps such a staple that it is today.
Hello? Yeah. Just one another point was, I think more important than apps being a killer is how did apps get so big, right? In the first place, you have so many apps, and I think a part of the reason behind it is the open economy that came out. If you remember when the iPhone 2 came out initially, they actually didn't have an app store at that time. The first 8 months, they didn't have an app store. And all those fans out there used to use something called Cydia. A lot of people had figured out that they could write applications and actually put it on Cydia, and that was the app store then, the unofficial app store. And then App Store came, and then Google came out with its Play Store. Now pretty much everybody has an application store. That's probably one reason why a channel for delivery and distribution, the fact that there exists a channel for delivery and distribution of what people have done, and perhaps an opportunity to monetize it, that's probably the reason why so many got developed. And then the fact that apps are so close to you, they are on your phone, you access your phone all the time, unlike a desktop where you have off hours and on hours. So therefore, that probably is the reason why app uptake is high. Now, one interesting thing that I want to share with you is, about a year ago, Coca-Cola, what it did was, it crowdsourced branding, right? Now, business applications are another thing, but what they said was, hey, we are interested in branding. Now go ahead, everybody write an app for taking Coca-Cola brand to the people in the US. And one of the guys, the one that actually won it was, they designed an app in which everybody could go to a national park of their choice and check in from there on the Coca-Cola application. And through that, what would happen is that national park, if it won amongst all the people who checked in, they would be given, Coca-Cola would donate like a few $100,000 for the upkeep of the park. And so the incentive was for people to actually go there and check in. The incentive for Coke perhaps could have been, obviously was branding, but was also perhaps like a bit of profiling, where are my savvy users distributed. Perhaps they see some business value in it. So that happened about a year ago. Now there is a new business model that's coming up, exactly on the same lines, on crowdsourcing applications. Somebody provides an open app store where you can actually have business requirements come in and business applications being developed. So I'm really sold on the business applications part. Okay. The consumer app store is already pretty much there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that was the panel's views. I'm sure each one of you who is a very, very smartphone user, do you guys have any views on why these apps are such a killer thing today? Does anybody have a view? If you have something different that you want to say, what the panelists have already said, more than happy to listen. Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Sundar. I used to work with an education company called minglebox.com. So one of the challenges that we had there was the student didn't have access to internet. This was a couple of years back. So what we did was we had an app. The app actually had all the online mock tests and learning material on the app. So we went and spoke to the students. What we identified was the student travels about 2 hours daily to college. And he doesn't have internet. This was 2 years back. Now the situation is a lot better. 2 years back, he didn't have internet, and that time he found the app to be more useful than the mobile website or a browser.
Okay.
I have one more question actually.
Questions will just come to in a moment, right? Okay. Now, when we're talking about these apps, there are 2 other last challenges which actually emerge. And there's one point which we talked about. One is app discovery, and the other is monetization. So, of course, the amount of effort which is going into development of the app, if these 2 are not present, it really doesn't make any sense, right? So one is the app discovery and the other is the monetization bit. So again, if each one of you could throw some light on one, how to go about the app discovery, and the other is, and we are primarily talking about consumer apps right now because enterprise apps don't fall in the category of app discovery or monetization, but yes, it is primarily the consumer app. So each one of you, if you could throw.
So let me first start by saying the app is not the answer for everyone, because today there are just so many apps, and honestly a lot of those apps do the exact same thing. So if you are considering entering or creating an app, make sure that there's some USP or something that you're doing right or better than the rest, because if your app is just the same as everybody else's, then it's really hard to stand apart. But having said that, honestly, this is actually a $1 billion question, because there is no really right answer. How do you get discovered? Because a lot of these apps, so Angry Birds, I mean, it's a great game, or rather, it was a new concept and that worked, it went viral. But by nature, it's really hard to predict what will go viral, and apps are a setup that it just works, it just goes viral. Someone has it, they influence someone else to get it, and influence someone else to get it. So it's really hard to predict and design that when you step into creating a new application. So that is a huge challenge. And in terms of monetization, either you can go with the entire paid app concept or the freemium app concept, or, okay, so let me just pause this. So paid app essentially is when you buy the app up front, the consumer buys the app up front. Now in India, that hasn't really been successful, though it has worked fairly well in other regions. Then you've got the freemium model where people buy in-app purchases, which again hasn't necessarily worked too well. And then you've got the free app, but essentially the goal of free apps is to get a large enough install base and then make money through ads or ad-supported information, content, etc. And a lot of companies are looking at the third option. Now the challenge with that is, if everyone is trying to do that, then, and if you saw there's only a limited amount of time people spend on their phones. They spend on average 2.5 hours a day. So the more apps that come in, and if they're all vying for eyeball time, then it's overall the entire industry is going to suffer. So in general, I say treat this with caution when you're entering the app space. And I know it's not exactly the answer you're looking for, but essentially it's not as simple as you create a good app and they won't necessarily be discovered. So there's a lot of factors in play, and I honestly don't have all the answers to that.
Sure.
I think there are a lot of standard ways how you get your app discovered. Perhaps your AdWords for the entire ad networks. Now, I think those are fairly, well tested. A lot of us use it extensively. So one of the things we recently did was very interesting. So you have a lot of your visitors. You have an existing user base that comes to your website. Take a cab booking company, for example. You either call the call center or you book on their internet website. Now, what we noticed was, so you can promote your app. Let's say, download our cab booking app right now. Go to the Play Store and search for us. The call to action is very weak. The moment you say go search on something else, somebody has to actually go to the Play Store, search, type out the entire name of the application, search. And we found that this was a hurdle. So what we really did there was, we asked them, instead of saying go to the Play Store and download it, we said give a missed call to so-and-so number. So we do a lot of this on the operator side. We work with operators, provide missed call, SMS, voice services. It's a staple part of our business as well. So give a missed call. In return, you would get an SMS with a smart link. The link will actually be smart enough to detect who asked for it. So it can exactly say that Abhijit downloaded this app on this time, or Ramesh hasn't downloaded it yet. What should we do next? It can tell you basically how many people, who all downloaded, how many people downloaded, and the smartest thing about it is it determines which phone clicked it, whether it was an Android phone that clicked it or whether it was an iPhone that clicked it. So it takes you directly to the Play Store, to that app in the Play Store. So you just made discovery slightly easier. The standard approaches, I'm sure all of us, if you're working with an agency or not, you all probably go gung-ho on it. You would be doing that. So this was something, this actually overcame that gap, wherein the call to action is usually very weak at that point. On the back of your car seat, you often see download an app from this location. Now that's not a strong enough call to action. Give a missed call, it's far easier to dial out a number, get a link, click the link, and everything is done. So that was one thing that we've done for making discovery easier, but I think this is just up to you all. The more hungry you are, you'll probably find a better way to distribute it.
Why I waited for the end on this one was because if you have a lot of money, please do mainstream media. So I know, we are one of the few apps and one of the few mobile brands in that sense who's used, ATL media to reach out to people. In fact, I'll take a step back. I'll go to what I think the panelists had initially in the presentation pointed out. I think the core is to make a really good app that answers a consumer need. I know you mentioned cab app. In fact, I've not used the one. I've used another one, Ola Cab, which just rocks. I as a consumer just sold to it. So yes, as long as the problem is being solved, it's actually better than calling up. It's that good. It's about identifying a consumer need and how you can do it. It's common sense across all industries, all businesses, but even more out here. Second is, I know there's a bit of a controversial statement to make in a domain which has something to do with technology. If you see a lot of value that has been created by businesses in this domain, mobile and internet, is not necessarily is not always because of technology innovations. A lot of it is product of business model innovations. A lot of successes are like that. If you now look at the biggest companies who've kind of grown in the last 6-7 years, not all of them have been technology breakthroughs. They've been breakthroughs in the kind of insights somebody has about usage. Social networking, what is it? I mean, I'm just putting a profile, my friends are going to share pictures with me. There's no technology breakthrough that has happened. It's just an insight that somebody had. And if you could put that in a timeline, or the fact that, people would love to do endless communication with each other on a phone, if you could make it free, it's a usage insight. It's not necessarily the price, because the app that started was actually priced as well. So it's about that insight that you have about users. Once you've got that, so let's assume, you on a pretty sure footing that you got that, I think then it's got to do with where do you stand as a business, what's the kind of funding that you have, are you going to ride some other network, is there some growth happening in some network and you want to ride that. For example, on WeChat, I know there's a lot of growth that we are witnessing. I've got people who are partnering with me in the ecosystem level, they're riding my growth, and I'm more than willing to do that, because what they bring to the table as part of, their understanding of their users contributes to the richness of, the ecosystem that we are building. So, I would say this would be the next one, about how you got to see where you are. And I'll again repeat, if you have, if you happen to be somewhere where you got access to funds, you can wait for the network effect to start word of mouth, or you can engineer it a little faster by using, a mainstream media as well.
Okay, thank you. So before I open to the floor for them to ask questions, I have one very critical question to ask from Ramesh. How did you find out what Abhijit downloads? Huh? That's dangerous.
Well, other than Google, nobody can find out what Abhijit downloaded.
Yeah.
But yes,
right.
what we do typically is, the link is actually unique to you. Essentially, it's a short link. It's very unique, so each person in the audience would have a unique link. So the campaign manager that deploys it does that at runtime and sends one thing to everybody. So the one on which the hit came, you exactly know this is the person. So that's the first part. And then, you code more and more logic into that link, the more and more smart things you can do. Okay. It's essentially for like a Myntra-like company, what it could do potentially with it is, it can send the same content to everybody. And actually the person clicking on it, based on what the internal CRM that Myntra, the e-commerce company manages, he could get a different discount coupon. You could get 60% because you're a frequent consumer, you're a frequent buyer, and you're really loyal to the brand, and I could probably get 10% because this is the first time I'm shopping with them, or I never shopped with them, so I get a 50% off to incentivize me. So that whole logic, it's so much more, the fact that it's a link in an SMS, a lot of it can be put in it.
Okay.
But definitely, I don't know what you downloaded last night.
All right. Thank you, Ramesh. Thanks for that confidence. Okay, so questions from you guys, please. Yeah, he's just kidding.
Thank you. Finally, icing on the cake, lovely panel, thank you. I'm Dr. Charu from Indian Institute of Public Administration and professor in e-governance. I would have certain questions, all of them are interrelated. First, Prithvi, what was your data sample? The data sample which you said. Let me complete all the questions, okay? Ramesh, thanks a lot. You brought in such a beautiful insight. With regard to the opportunities also, I would like you to highlight. You brought out actually issues related to public sector consumption of mobile usage. That I was looking forward since morning, because we are rural communities, prima facie. So what are the opportunities for mobile? All the people out here are either publishers or content designers. So what are the kind of opportunities which exist for public sector consumption for rural communities? So that's one question. And with regard to your issue of the link, which he also brought in, I'm very worried about the privacy issues as well. Because you've now become kind of an Uncle Sam watching me all the time, you know what I'm doing and how I'm doing, and you get my details. And Rahul, I really appreciate what you brought in. I think the takeaway from today's discussions finally, Rahul, is all about user centricity. So we all of us have to add that point, apart from the public sector perspective, is the user profiling. I didn't find any of the speakers talking about it explicitly, or any company coming and talking about. I'm actually clashing myself. I'm talking about privacy at one point and I'm saying citizen centricity and user centricity, and please capture the profile of the user and then design the apps and then capture the audience. So that's how I would say. Thank you. Yeah, start.
Sure. Just to start, I know you're not actually contradicting yourself. I mean, I like the point that you made that there is a line that we need to draw. So we at Nielsen, we call it personally identifiable indicators. So essentially at no given stage, while we do a lot of profiling, we don't go down to the individual level. We go down to basic demographic details of the person to help maybe an app developer refine or sharpen their product. But that's at a later discussion. I'll just get back to your earlier point in terms of sample size and a little bit background about this. So in Nielsen, amongst the various different things we do, we also manage a lot of panels here and abroad, be it television, as well as various different audience measurements. So what we have is we have a strong measurement sciences team that then looks at the smartphone universe in India and helps us understand what's the makeup, what's the map of the smartphone universe like, who are the people in it. And then we go about setting up a panel that mirrors that universe. So we got panels across the world. We got 10 smartphone panels. In India, we got the largest, which is about 8,000 smartphone users and about 450 tablet users. So these 8,000 smartphone users mirror the Yeah, they mirror, but only urban India. So essentially the cutoff here is the 1 lakh plus. We don't look at rural because that's not something we're really directly focused at this stage. So in general, all the data that we have is based on actual daily, minutely, hourly usage, actually every second pretty much, or usage of the individual within the panel. So all those 8,000 users, but the information is anonymized, aggregated, and then sent to our cloud on which we do analytics. So the caveat here is we never get down to the individual level. So hypothetically, someone in this room could be a panelist. I would not know that. So there are multiple levels of security in place, so we can't influence usage. So I think that answers the question.
So I think there were two questions. One was on user profile. How can the public sector leverage user profile because the mobile is so close to you? So last month in September, we had a social media week. So we actually were speaking at the Mantralaya on a very similar thing. And one of the things that came up, a very good example came up for that. They were, so you have a lot of government schemes for rural India. There are so many of them that people absolutely have no idea what they are eligible for. Right from when a girl child is born, you have schemes all the way to the wonderful Narega and the like. But the thing is, so one of the things we were discussing then was how do you take a single identity, you build a profile around it. So the first time this person calls, you take his Aadhaar. Now you have Aadhaar and mobile. The next time he calls about a scheme, you build a little more information. So once this is done, this mapping is done, then you find what all schemes he might be eligible for. ये बिहार से है, इसका ये number है, इसका ये आधार है, what schemes. So the database exists to have all the information in there. But the problem is that last connect, building a profile, which borders on big data. I think everybody loves that term, but that's exactly. So we do that for enterprises already. Building a social profile, building a profile is what we do for telecom operators globally, left, right, and center, because we want to make sure we sell you that 100 rupee data pack to you, even though you don't need it. So we help telecom operators do that. So the profiling is a part of what we do. So for public sector, that's one thing that we really were discussing with the Maharashtra government, but there's a lot of challenges in it. The second question you had was what from mobile, I'm sorry, on the privacy. Government se kaun bachta hai? The gentleman from Gujarat, look what he's doing. So none of this is actually, none of this in this case is personal information. So which is why I was sticking, what we've done is, we've gone on mobile-enabled government processes. Okay. Now that part, a lot of governments are already, the directive that came out in 2002 forced them all to go e-governance. Right. Over 8 years or 10 years, they've substantially moved all the processes to electronic. From there, the mobile step, mobile enabling through apps or through any other channel, through IVR or an SMS, that's just a step forward. That's not been taken by governments in India. That's just there. CDAC is working extensively on it. Several governments in the south are gung-ho about it. They are on board. So, how do you leverage mobile for the public sector? Tremendous opportunity. The fact that e-governance has actually made a lot of things electronic, taking it mobile seems to be a much smaller challenge now. We are very actively working on that part elsewhere. So that's one thing that when it comes to apps, every department, for example, I know this particular department, revenue department, has 40 certificates. And they have like 3,000 village accountants who go out all across the state. And they need an application for each of them. So I would say a portal. From a portal, you can access any application, you know, one on-device portal from their application. So those are ways in which that problem can be solved.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else on the question? Okay, so those are the two last questions that we'll take. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I am Maulik Soni, and I do app conceptualization and development for Tech Mahindra. So what I would like to ask is that if we see like app development and its revolution. So earlier smartphone, phone came up with just he said that okay, phone book integration was one of the growth reasons for apps. Then I think it came up camera, and after camera we will say that okay, touch is the new sensor which accelerated app development. Then I think it came in GPS sensor, and then right now we have like accelerometer, gyroscope, gravity sensors, and what I understand the most recent is the NFC. So what do you think that the next kind of sensor that can again accelerate the growth for applications? And if not what you think, then which kind of sensor would you like, and you think that that would be the best thing that can really ask more and more developers or people to develop different kinds of apps, or maybe it can create a new category of apps?
No, great. See, it's in terms of crystal ball gazing, one would love to do that. And I've been asked this question: what exactly would you want in a phone? Further in a smartphone, my answer is very simple: give me better battery life. I think I'll continue to be a champion of reduce the features, give me lesser features, but just increase the battery life. But that apart, on the issues that you're mentioning, I would not still go on to conjecturing what's the next big thing, because I still believe we haven't, even scratched the surface in terms of what could be done given the existing parameters. You mentioned location. And goes back to the point I was mentioning when I was talking. Commerce, we haven't even touched the surface of what could be done with location. Think about it, the entire supply chain that gets built around, for example, e-commerce deliveries or other companies in deliveries. The entire model will change if I were to first share my location with you, and then how your supply chain takes over is actually dependent on what I've shared with you first. I don't think so anybody's yet gone into that, in a significant way, and they have to go there in any case. This is one. On the part that you mentioned about, I think touch has been used very well. In a recent forum, I was asked what is that has been, is there anything that the app manufacturers are doing for, for example, the visually impaired? I think that's a very significant question, because I remember having done a significant amount of work on accessibility. There were two kinds of things for visually impaired. It's either tactile feedback, where earlier keyboards were good, but the smartphones are not good, and are not by default good. Then it's about you have audio menus that you use. So some of these OSs are already using that. Some of the apps need to embrace that a lot more. But think about it. Even touch phones are able to give you tactile feedback. There's feedback that comes to you. So somebody needs to start working on that. There's a lot that could be done on that space. Overall, giving an answer to what you're saying, I think there's a lot that first needs to be done on the existing set of functional possibilities that smartphones have, and yes, then it would be good to see what's the next one.
So I'm just going to add on to that. Thanks, Rahul. So essentially, to your point, what sensors are going to be used next? Let's take a pause and see what sensors we have today and how we're using that. And clearly, from what Rahul says, we're not using it. But the other aspect is that I think the next big part, which will also feed into monetization, is analytics. So today there's so many apps that we use on a regular basis. So tomorrow, if we combine location data with your friend circle in Facebook, with your brands that you like in Facebook, with what you've posted, with the places you've traveled to, So essentially what you can get with that, or rather where I see apps working in the future is actually interacting and talking to each other. A Zomato app might talk to a Facebook app, might talk to a Make My Trip app, to come back and create something specific for you, like a travel package which includes where places you'd like to stay and food you like to eat and places that your friends have recommended. So a lot of companies are working towards this. It's just that today it's all in isolation. Tomorrow you could have multiple apps talking to each other, and that's a whole new level of monetization that could happen. And that's where everyone should start looking towards. So you've got your own data. Each app developer, each application owner has information about their user base, about the frequency that they use it, the location that the people use those apps from. So if they can start merging that with other information, if we can talk to maybe a credit card company, or talk to an automotive manufacturer, or talk to a telecom operator, combine those data sets, then the richness that you can come back with in terms of a new product offering for your own consumers could be very rewarding. So that could be an interesting aspect to look at as well.
Ramesh, you want to? Or?
So one thing that seems to be very, just crystal gazing, and one thing that seems to be coming up, I think very soon it should be a part of OSs, is the ability of the OS to listen to what you're doing or what you're saying. And this goes core against privacy, I know. But one of those applications that came up recently while I was reading upon Shazam, what they're up to, is they are building a database of advertisements, like database of fingerprint. Shazam is basically, you use it to find out which song is playing. It tells you, looks up a database and tells you which song it is. Now, instead of songs, apart from songs, they're also building up a database of advertisements. Now, once you have a database, you have fingerprint of the database. So while your phone is on and you're turned on Shazam because they offer you some incentive, you keep it turned on, and the moment you do that, it's listening continuously to the ads. And it takes fingerprints of all of them and tells advertisers, the brands, that look, 17,000 people saw your ad during this particular TV show. Now, that's some kind of a sense, I would say. It's plain vanilla recognition, but it's also a lot more. The fact that it's getting integrated in the OS, it almost becomes like the sixth sense. It's listening to you. I would say that's something that's happening. I don't know how app developers like us, how are we going to monetize that opportunity?
All right. Thank you. Though that question wasn't posed to me, but I'll tell you I'm a very touch and feel guy. So they've cracked touch, let them crack feel now. So that I can feel, the e-commerce bit and etc. and everything. If I can start feeling on the phone, get the sense of feel, that would be actually great. And let's see if they can crack the next bit, which is the feel part, because that'll take the whole app thing to a completely different level after that, once they have cracked the basic touch. So let them crack feel from here. There was the last question there. Yeah.
Abhijit just asked this question earlier, that what is the killer thing in an app. I think the one word to that is simplicity. And why I say that is because my 2-year-old daughter can use YouTube seamlessly. I mean, my wife cannot and she can. And I recently made a post about it and there were about 100 likes, that she can use YouTube to the extent that she will even skip the ad after 5 seconds and then watch the video. The question that I'm coming to leads into this is that while she's using all these other apps on the iPad and stuff, or the iPhone, the amount of ads that she comes across and she clicks, she's probably contributing to $500 of advertising in a year. And that is accidental advertising, giving valuation to one company and advertisers' hard-earned money being spent, and a bad user experience for my daughter. So now, where does this whole mobile advertising and mobile app monetization fit into such a space?
No, so just that I've understood your point, essentially you're saying ads are annoying, right? Yeah, I agree with you completely, 100%. And that's actually the biggest problem we have today. And honestly, I wait very, let's say, I'm very focused on that tiny corner of the YouTube window waiting for that skip ad now button to come up so I can skip it. And it could be a fantastic ad, I don't know, because right now I'm just focused on that. And so I know what you're talking about, what your daughter's thinking. It's just that, unfortunately today, no one has got it right. We haven't figured out how to use ads effectively. So most ads are just an annoyance. I mean, I remember when, this is slightly off topic, but I remember when Tata Sky started having HD channels, I would only watch that even if I didn't like the content because they had no ads at that point. So that's how far I would go to avoid ads. And considering I'm from Nielsen, it's really ironic because a lot of our work is actually to help advertisers push out more ads. But having said that, the vision that I have, to be honest, is essentially, I'm going to go back to what I said previously, is where all the app developers, all the individual source of data, the telecom operator, app developer, credit card manufacturer, credit card vendor, and agency, research agency, all comes together to try and create relevance. Because there's no reason why an ad should be this annoying. There could be an ad that's so relevant to me. So if I suddenly forget my anniversary, which has happened, let's be honest, it's happened to many of us. So and then suddenly I get a notification saying, listen, it's the anniversary. These are the flowers that your wife liked the last time, or something that detailed. It's right here as you pass by from your commute back home. Why don't you pick it up? They're giving you a discount offer. So essentially something so relevant, essentially telling me something that I should have thought of myself, but I didn't because I'm just too busy in today's day. So that's actually where advertising should go. It's really hard. We're going to step on a lot of people's privacy toes. But essentially, if we can crack this right, if we can get ads relevant to the point that every ad converts into an action, converts into a sale, that's actually where we should be going. And not the skip ads or the display ads or various different pieces. Another interesting piece I came across is in one of these smartphone racing games, I think it was Asphalt 7 or something, where as I was playing the game and I was driving around in the car, I found that the tracks and they had banners and buildings which actually had product placement in it, inside the game on the smartphone, which was such a cool idea. And also in the game I could go and select sponsors. I can select like Dunlop tires or something like that to get better grip. So effectively that could be another approach where we leverage games to kind of subliminally get a message across that, listen, this product equals, better quality. So, thinking outside the box. Right now, very few advertisers are thinking outside the box. They're taking the same television concept and pushing it onto a small screen, which means small screen, smaller real estate, and trying and taking away from that experience.
Okay, Ramesh, you want to say something? So that's it. All right. Thank you very much. So thank you, panelists. We all know that this apps is just about beginning. Like someone said, that is just the tip of the iceberg right now. There's a huge amount of stuff which is still coming, a huge amount of exciting times which are still way ahead for us. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was awesome to actually have you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank our panelists, Mr. Abhijit Saxena, Mr. Ramesh Raman, Mr. Prithvi Raj, Mr. Rahul Razdan, and thank you all for being here. With the entire discussion that we've had since the entire day, I think, though we've come to the closing session, but I think we should just say that we've just started. On that note, thank you all very much. Bye-bye.